Hi, I'm Jim Brett, President and CEO of the New England Council. Thanks for tuning in to this month's episode of Inside the Corner Office, where we catch up with the leaders of some of our region's most well-respected businesses and organizations to learn more about their career paths and about the institutions they lead. This month, our guest is Dr. Steve DiSalvo, the president of Endicott College and current chair of the Association of Independent Colleges and Universities in Massachusetts. I had the pleasure of getting to know Dr. DiSalvo over the course of his time leading both Endicott College and previously St. Anselm's College. In this wide-ranging conversation, we talked about how he had drawn upon his business background to lead Endicott to incredible growth and about some of the challenges that college presidents face in the current environment. We also got his thoughts on President-elect Trump's plan to eliminate the United States Department of Education and what that would mean for colleges and students alike. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. Dr. DiSalvo, it's great to see you as always. Thanks for taking the time to join me today. I'm very excited for our members to get to learn more about you and Endicott. Let's start by taking a little bit about your career path, and because I truly think that you have a very unique background for a college president. So you've been in higher ed leadership, I think about 15 years now, but your earlier career was in business. So tell us a little more about your earlier career.
Well, first, thank you, Jim, for having me. I came out of college thinking I was going to land in the business sector, and really an internship with IBM led to a full-time job the day after I graduated. Went to Fordham, ended up with a job in New York with IBM, and stayed in that position until I went to grad school to get my MBA in 1988. Returned to find out that IBM was downsizing, and lo and behold, my alma mater offered me a position to help them raise money on a capital campaign. And that changed the trajectory for me. Having spent a number of years at several Jesuit institutions, Fordham, Loyola Chicago, and Fairfield University in Connecticut, and then took a little bit of a turn where I went to the nonprofit sector, running Junior Achievement of New York, and then eventually a foundation for the manager of the Yankees, believe it or not, focusing on domestic violence. And did that, and then I started my own company, a company that was focused on philanthropic advisement with clients in and around the New York area. And so with some education background, fundraising background, and running a for-profit and a nonprofit, landed my first presidency at Marian University in Wisconsin, which then led to an opportunity to come back east and run St. Anselm College. What attracted me there, of course, was not only the liberal arts education, but the Political Institute, which is where we first met. And I had a good run there until I got recruited to come to Endicott, which is a very different business model and something that I was excited to join.
Wow, what an impressive background. How does your business background impact the way you go about running the college?
You know, it's interesting because when I started out 15 years ago, it was kind of taboo to talk about higher education as a business. And I firmly believe now that higher education is a business that needs to be run like a business. And from everything from the way we manage the financial piece of it, to how we market, how we serve our students and our alumni population. And so there are a lot of moving parts. I am thrilled that I'm at a place that understands the business of education. And the board, which is very entrepreneurial, moves pretty quickly on letting us advance our agenda. So it is a business, And my business background, having, as I said, run a for-profit and nonprofit, fit very well with this business model.
You know, many small private colleges have really struggled in recent years. Some have closed, some have been acquired by other institutions. I read just recently, I think some 20 have either merged or closed just in the last 10 years here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So, but Endicott has experienced incredible growth, largely because of your approach and how you run the college. But tell us a little more about some of the growth and the strategies that you have put in place to ensure that Endicott will continue to thrive.
So, as I said, when you get to the point where you can be a little bit selective about where you want to go, the business model attracted me here in large part because of the auxiliary revenue that this institution could drive. And my job when I came in was to scale it as quickly as possible because we know what the forces are against us: declining demographics, less 18-year-olds in the pipeline, more competition in the space, and pricing models that seem to be attractive at other places, but in the end, come back to hurt them. So for us, if I look at my auxiliary revenue alone, things like the wedding business, I never thought I'd be running weddings, but we have 2 venues on the ocean that are very attractive. And last year, between April and October, we ran 137 weddings.
Wow.
And all of that auxiliary revenue goes to the bottom line, which you can reinvest in the institution. And then we have a conference center, and we have a hotel, and we run all the camps and other events throughout the year that drive in a substantial amount of auxiliary revenue. So I learned in the past, you cannot be a one-trick pony. It can't all be about undergraduate revenue. While that's the main source, that may keep the lights on, but it doesn't allow you to grow unless you have additional revenue streams. The other thing that's interesting for us is the price point. So I'm often asked, why are we less expensive than our main competitors? And my answer is, we have not artificially inflated the gross price of education. We've kept it where we believe it needs to be today. And our discount rate, which is lower, is reflected in that. But when you go out and shop around, you see prices that are much higher than ours with discount rates that are 20% higher. So they have to give away more money to compete with us. The danger in that model is if some of that money goes away or they can't afford to keep that award, the out-of-pocket expense for the family goes up. Here, it doesn't go up, and we can pretty much tell you what that out-of-pocket is going to be versus the competition when you apply. And so we win a lot of head-to-heads on net price. The change for us is that the institutions that we used to cross-app with have moved down on our competitive set, and the places like Fairfield, Providence, and Quinnipiac have moved up because of the programs that we offer, the quality of the programs, but also because of the price. And that should not be discounted, because we look at that and say, that gives us a competitive advantage in the marketplace. And then our outcomes. You look at our outcomes, and we can talk about this in a little bit, but what we've been able to do with our internship model is a great differentiator for us. Parents look at us and say, you mean to tell me my son or daughter is going to have a job offer before they graduate? And we say yes, because it's built into the curriculum. It's not an add-on.
That's great. Wow. Well, certainly leading a college or a university in these challenging environment is no easy task. And indeed, we've seen so many college presidents in our region step down, and we know many of them in recent years. You've worked in recent years to help build a talent pipeline of higher education leaders and to increase that tenure. Can you talk a little bit about your work here and what you think needs to be done to support college presidents and ensure that stable leadership for our schools in the future?
So I've been at this for quite some time. I've been running a program with some colleagues called Exploring the College Presidency. And it is designed to attract people that are thinking somewhere down the road, maybe a year or two, maybe 3 to 5 years out, that they may want to throw their hat in the ring and learn more about what the job really is about. And I always start off by telling them, it's not all cocktail parties and honorary degrees. There's a lot of work that goes into this job that you don't see and requires your time, effort, and attention constantly. So part of the program is to give them feedback and perspective from sitting presidents who I invite in, and we talk to them about the financial models. We talk to them about the student affairs piece, the academic piece and how that grows over time strategically, the relationship with your board. And during the course of that process, some people self-select out and say, yeah, that sounds great, but not for me. And then we end up with a handful every year that say, I'm interested. Can you help me as I advance in this process and apply for presidencies? And our hope is that they find the right fit. I think one of the challenges in the sector is that we've had less and less people interested in presidencies, and the search firms are recycling a lot of the same names in the hopes they can entice people to take a job, not necessarily the right job or the right fit. So we spend a lot of time on this, making sure that we can educate both sides about what the school is looking for, what the candidate is seeking, and if it's a match. It's an important part of the dialogue that often gets overlooked. And what boards are looking for, fundraising, you need to have that, some track record of leadership, but also understanding that business sector model. That is the big change that we've seen from 10 years ago when it was the academic track, right? It was the dean, the provost becomes a president. There's less of that, and there's more of fundraisers, enrollment managers, finance people who are making it to the big seat.
You know, you mentioned earlier about internships, how you have it as a high priority at Endicott. Tell us more about that experimental EDGE program and how you partner with the business community to help prepare students. It sounds like they get a resume, they get a degree, and maybe a job, all three, which is pretty extraordinary. So tell us more about this.
So we branded this as the Endicott Experiential Edge. What gives the student an edge if they come here? And it starts with the fact that the internship model is embedded within the curriculum, meaning what you take for your coursework all counts towards your experience with internships. There's an internship that's required the first year. Now, some people say, how could you do an internship the first year? You might not even know what you're going to major in. Well, that's the point. The point is to help you find out what you like to do. And it may be that you pick an internship that you continue with in that sector, or it might be that you turn around and say, this isn't for me, I want to look for something else. So the second internship occurs in either the sophomore or junior year as you get close to picking that major, and you do that second internship with more of a focus on matching up what you're learning in the classroom and what you're doing in the internship experience. But the capstone, the third internship, which is done in the senior year, is a full semester internship. You don't take other classes, you go to work. And this is a two-way street because the employers get to test drive the student to see if they are doing the quality of work that they expect and if it's a match for them. The student gets to do the same thing. and decide whether or not they like working at that particular firm, if the culture is right for them. And many, many times they get these job offers as the final internship is concluding. So it's the launching point, and we have to make sure that the business sector is supplying enough opportunities for the number of graduates that we have in the pipeline. We have full-time faculty, internship faculty that work with students. And you mentioned resumes, doing all of the behind-the-scene work to make sure the students are prepared. And one thing I need to clarify is we don't find the internship for the student. We teach the student how to find the internship for themselves. And the rationale is when you graduate, you go to work and you stay there 3 to 5 years and you go for the next job, nobody's finding the job for you. You've got to do it on your own. So we're teaching you how to fish in the beginning, and that in and of itself is a major differentiator for the way this program has been designed.
Very interesting. Last month, Endicott was very kind to co-sponsor New England Council event with the NCAA president and former governor here, Charlie Baker. And I remember you introducing the governor. You noted that a third of the student body at Endicott are athletes, which I was surprised to learn. Your student athletes obviously have been incredibly successful. And I know that you've made investments, obviously, to support them. Talk a little bit of why athletics are so important at Endicott and how some of the new rules and regulations of the NCAA have had an impact here.
Well, as I said, 30% is a big number, and that includes 20 NCAA sports, as well as club sports and intramural sports that we run at this institution. So the club sports where they're competing against other schools, and the intramurals obviously all in-house. But the 20 NCAA sports are what are driving the bulk of the numbers. One of the reasons it's up to 30%, honestly, is that we had 2 years of COVID red shirts, many of whom stuck around because they had eligibility. As long as they were enrolling in one of our graduate programs, they could still play. So the roster size has got a little bit inflated over the past few years. That will start to slow down this coming year and certainly next year. But the student athletes in Division III, which is, this is my personal opinion on all this. Division III is the amateur sports league. Students come first. They are student athletes. They are not given athletic scholarships. So money doesn't muddle the issue. We can award scholarships based on need, and we can award scholarships based on academic performance. I would argue that many of our students get equal or more money in this model of Division III than they would if they went Division II or I, where it was strictly athletic scholarships, because the number of students eligible is not very large. So we've had great success. So this is the other part of this. Last year, we won 13 out of the 20 NCAA sports conference championships. So when you have success like that, student athletes want to come and join those winning teams. As examples, our hockey team, men's hockey 2 years ago, went to the Frozen Four. We hosted it here on campus. Charlie Baker was actually my guest for the semifinals. So that was exciting. We had a baseball team the last 2 years go to the College World Series. They're on the cusp of winning a national championship. We currently have a top 10 football team. We have a cheer squad, a dance team. Dance won 2 national championships. An equestrian rider won a national championship. So we've had tremendous success, and that drives interest. To be completely transparent, football was an important addition for this institution, because we started as a women's college in 1939. We didn't go co-ed until the mid-90s. So to drive male enrollment, the idea was you add a football team. When you have a roster of 130 plus young men only, it helps with the male head count, and we retain them at a very high level. So that's all good for us. And then we're up against what is happening at the NCAA level. Name, image, and likeness has affected Division I in a very big way, where they're getting paid for their name or image in different ways. And then you have the transfer portal. So the transfer portal has a trickle-down effect because you have student athletes that can leave after 1 year, go to another institution. And by the way, so can a coach. And if a coach leaves, they can take the players with them. There's no waiting period anymore. So you have a lot of movement. And in some cases, the trickle down is Division I players do not find a landing spot somewhere else. And they say, yeah, but you've got a team that's on the verge of a national championship. We'll come and play for you. So we do have some former Division I players, for example, on our hockey team. So we're the beneficiaries of that. But there is a philosophical difference between what I call the pre-professional Division I model and the Division III amateur model. I'll take Division III any day of the week. I think it's the right way for student athletes to participate in athletics.
The other hat that you wear, you're the chair of the Association of Independent Colleges and Universities here in Massachusetts, which many people know as AICM. So why is it important for colleges and universities to work together through organizations like AICM? And what are some of the association's top priorities at the moment?
Well, I tell you, I came to Endicott in the fall of 19, and of course, the wheels came off for all of us in the spring of 20. What I saw from AICM during the early days of COVID was a very organized effort to share information and work collaboratively to solve a major problem for all of us. Could we reopen? How would we reopen? What would the testing look like? How could we drive the cost down? What medical information could be shared confidentially that would help us address some of these issues? How are we going to quarantine students, faculty, or staff? So we dealt with all of those. We had weekly Zoom meetings like this. We sat on a computer and we had experts from institutions like Boston University and Tufts and Wellesley. These were trained doctors and scientists that were leading the conversation, and the rest of us could all ask the questions. It was a great example of why AICM exists, to help each other and share information. So now fast forward, I was asked to take on the vice chair last year. Things were relatively quiet. And then we had congressional hearings and we had some fallout from that. And now I've assumed the chair role at the time that we have a transition in Washington. So what are we focused on now? Financial aid and how it will be awarded going forward is a major concern for us, especially some of our smaller member institutions. Just to remind folks, AICM, the Association of Independent Colleges and Universities in Massachusetts, it's a 58-member organization, and it ranges from, Harvard and Tufts down to, places like Anna Maria and Emmanuel, much smaller, and everything in between. But we are all faced with the same issues regarding how the Trump administration is going to perhaps completely change the Department of Education, if it even exists as a department. So you've got financial aid on the docket. You have Title IX. and the way we are required to investigate Title IX cases. We know what it was like from 16 to 20, gave a lot more leeway to the perpetrator than the victim. I fear that may go back, and that may land in the Department of Justice. Then we have endowment tax for the large institutions. That's a major concern, and this one is interesting because most of those endowments were built by donor-funded initiatives. People gave money into the endowment. They also got a tax deduction to do that. And now on the back end, they're looking to tax not the donor, but the institution who received the money. So there's a problem that needs to be addressed there. But if the government's looking to make money, they're going to go after the large endowments and try to tax them. So we have membership that are concerned about that. And then, of course, there's the accreditation issue. How will higher ed accreditation move forward under this administration? If the rollback is, take it back to 1979, before Jimmy Carter started the Department of Education. And by the way, Reagan tried to undo it, but didn't have the votes. The DOE is sitting there going, well, we have a regional accreditation system. The regional accreditors have boards, in our case, NECI, that is made up of college presidents within the region. And then the visiting teams are chaired by presidents, and the membership on the teams are senior leaders from other institutions. It's a peer review process to make sure that we are adhering to the standards of accreditation that have been set forth by the federal government. Now, if they undo that, we could be looking at either the states being given the authority to run accreditation, which could create a whole nother set of issues, or the feds coming in saying, we'll do it. And my fear there is, who's going to do it? And do they know what is happening in the sector? We may end up with a group of people that they know the standards, but they don't know the institutions. So as AICM, we are now convening groups to talk about all of these issues, because we're really concerned that this could just turn everything upside down, especially in the wake of the rhetoric regarding the social issues on campus and the unrest and their insistence that they're going to try to regulate what happens on a college campus.
What are your thoughts on the federal loan forgiveness? Do you think that the president and Congress will be successful in rescinding all of the work that President Biden has done and the forgiveness?
Well, it's interesting, and I may be in the minority on this with my constituents, but loan forgiveness, it has to be equitable, right? And I think the problem with the way it was presented was it was going to forgive loans for a certain cohort of individuals that met criteria during a set time frame. But it doesn't really solve the problem, because you're going to amass more debt on loans going forward. And you've got the question of what happens 4 years, 8 years down the road. You're going to just rack up more debt. And then you have families saying, but wait a minute, I paid for my child's education and I got no forgiveness because I took money out of my own pocket, as opposed to have my son or daughter take out a loan. I think it's a tough one to battle if you don't try to do this in an equitable fashion. I used to chair the student aid committee for NICU, which is the National Association of Independent Colleges. And I said, if we did what other countries have done, like England and Australia, they just take a percentage pre-tax out of your pay to pay off your loans. and it's a low amount. It's 3%. And the only difference in that model is if you're an investment banker, you're going to pay off your loans much faster than you are if you're a teacher. But that's okay because your net out of pocket is not impacted greatly. In the current model, if you're paying 20%, 15%, it's going to just kill the service sector jobs. Those people are going to be taking out a lot of money and they don't make a lot. So it seems like a pretty simple thing. And I proposed this to candidates in 2016 and everybody said, that's a really smart idea. Never made it onto the floor. Nobody wanted to tackle that. The other issue I'll throw out there is we're bound by antitrust. And I always thought, why can't we have a conversation about college affordability? Why can't we look at the pricing models? The sector is starting to price itself out of the market. People are saying, $90,000 for some of these schools. Soon it's going to be $100,000. At what point does it break the back of the consumer where they say, you're not even going to apply there? That's crazy. That's a crazy amount of money. But there's still demand at those top institutions, no matter what the price point is. I had a member president say to me, we're going to continue to raise it until our applications slow down. And I don't see that happening anytime soon. It's the players at the lower band and some in the middle that are really going to get hurt by this. So a temporary exemption to federal antitrust would say, let's sit at the table. Let's have a conversation. Should we do a reset of the gross price? Bring it down, bring down those crazy discount rates so we can respond to the marketplace? I think that's a good idea. But that would have to come from the DOJ. And I'm not confident that's going to come in the next 4 years.
So if President Trump called you, knowing that you're a fellow New Yorker, and asked you that one question, give me an example of how we can expand access to higher ed, you'd say?
I would say make sure that the funding that we currently give stays in place and look at expanding things for the lower income bracket. The Pell eligibility should be expanded. We should be giving more money to students whose families make below a certain threshold. But if you're going to squeeze it and you're going to tighten the reins on how money is distributed, you're not only going to hurt the institutions, you're going to hurt the very families that we're trying to serve. There's some interesting data that just came out about the number of minority students that have declined at some major institutions because we're not allowed to ask the race question. And we believe we should be diversifying our student body. I always say it's smart to have an institution that reflects the world in which you live. But if we can't ask the question, we don't know who these people are. And it's really difficult because we don't have a lot of money to give out across the board. So if you squeeze the funding, you're hurting those very students. I would say keep what you have in current funding, expand Pell, and try to get more students below a certain income bracket the assistance they need.
Dr. Steve DiSalvo, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. Clearly, Endicott is in great hands under your leadership. You have much to be proud of, and we're fortunate to have you as a member of the New England Council, fortunate to have you as a board member as well. To those of you tuning in, I hope you enjoyed getting to know Dr. DiSalvo and learning more about his work, both on campus at Endicott and his extraordinary work that he is doing at AICM, which is in great hands of an extraordinary leadership there with the executive director, Mr. McCarron. Please be sure to tune in next month for our first episode of 2025, where our guest will be Mark Peters, the new CEO of the MITRE Corporation.